What up, Buckeye Nation? Welcome to the Buckeye Boys. Appreciate you guys showing up today. Obviously, in the title, you see the subject today for today's show. Put in a lot of research, made a lot of calls yesterday, got a lot of information. Was going to do this show last night. Ended up not having time to do it, so wanted to jump on here today and just share with you guys what I've been hearing, the information I gathered. And kind of go over that. But going to be a little bit different of a show starting off here. But before we get into it, all you regular listeners, new listeners in the chat, if you could hit that like button for me, and whatever channel you're listening on, that'd be great. Subscribe button as well always helps. And the super chats are on. All super chats for the Buckeye Boys channel, they go to help Teen Challenge and Ministry that helps people with any life controlling issue through the power of Jesus, and also homeless vets. My brother Mello is very passionate about that. He's in the chat now. So what's up, Mello? An official Buckeye boy. Taking a little siesta. Work has interfered for the time being, but we will see Mello back on again as soon as that clears up. But guys, again, a little bit different start today. Been going through some things in life. I'm going to dive into the Hartline stuff. But first, if you're not an avid listener of my show, you might hear some things for the first time today. But I'm a huge believer in Jesus. And I know this is a football channel, but me and Mello's heart behind this, was Ohio State football and to spread hope and to spread love. And that is the first calling that God put on my life. So I just kind of want to share my testimony a little bit real fast. Haven't done it in a minute. For those of y'all that are hearing it twice, I apologize for that. But been going through some things here lately. The enemy's been attacking pretty hardcore, specifically with this YouTube stuff here. And we started this to have a nice, clean, friendly space, and just spread joy and kindness, man. So I wanted to start off the show and give you guys a little background about myself. Raised with a really good family on a farm in Ohio. Great parents, two brothers, whatnot. Played a lot of basketball, played a lot of sports. At some point in time, man, in high school, I started going down a dark, dark path. Mainly my freshman year in college. Anyway, started doing quite a bit of drugs, like really hard stuff, and it took me to a place in life where went to county jail several times, went to prison a couple times, went to rehab 21 times, went into a coma for 10 days, that should not have survived, and should not have come out of being able to talk and do the normal things that I do now. But God had different plans for me. I ended up going into a program called Teen Challenge, like I'm telling you about, where you go in and you work in the program. And while you're working there, you get home from work, you go through classes to learn about Jesus. Well, in the midst of that, I started to build a relationship um, with who Jesus was, what he does, the plan and the purpose he has for my life. Because when I started using, I was completely lost. I thought drugs was my problem. Drugs was not my problem. It was that I didn't have a purpose. I didn't have an identity in my life. And when I tell you that in my past life, I was broken to the core, right? And every time I looked in the mirror, I was disgusted with who I saw. Anyway, met Jesus through this ministry, and he put a really big calling on my life to continue to help those people that struggle in life with anything, because life is very difficult. You don't have to be addicted to drugs or go through something so severe to be going through problems, right? So, you know, I got introduced to Jesus, saw a couple of my buddies in the program at the time. They had been clean for longer than me. I saw them following Jesus, and I loved what they were doing in their life. So I wanted that. So I dove into it a little bit, and it was a really a rough start at first. It's not easy. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, and it still is, to try to follow Jesus and try to do what he is. I'm not perfect at all. I don't know everything about the Bible. All I know is that, in Philippians verse 4, it talks about, praying to God and thanking him for everything he has done, and he will give you that peace that's beyond all understanding. That peace that's beyond all understanding, it's real, right? It's something that I experience and I still experience. And there's days where it gets away from me and I have to, and that's actually occurred this past week. I let that peace that God gives you slip away from me. And, in the Bible, it's in the book of Isaiah, it talks about when you go through deep waters, when you go through flames of oppression, when you go through rivers of difficulties. So the Bible tells us we're going to go through those things. That's a promise. We're going through rivers of difficulty, right? And deep waters as well. But the next part of that verse, it's he will be with you. I will be with you. So God will never leave you. So just a brief version of what I've been through in life. I was absolutely broken. I mean, I love my family, and they'll probably tell you this is true. I'm sure they lost all hope as well. There were several people in my family that my mom expected a phone call that I was dead or that I had killed somebody and going to prison for the rest of my life. Like, they expected that phone call, and I just was completely lost. I was living in hell on earth. Like, the only way I kept going forward every day is waking up telling myself, well, if it gets too bad, I can just end it. That's how I lived like the last 6 months of my addiction, thinking, well, if I get in trouble for this or if things get too bad, then, I can figure out how to end this nightmare that I am living. But man, I'm telling you, the walk was very hard, but I don't care what situation you're in. I don't care what you are going through. I don't care what you have done. There is always hope, and that hope is Jesus. And I encourage you, right? The Bible also tells us that we overcome the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So I encourage you, if you are a believer and you have been through something in life, ask God for the courage to share that experience, share that testimony of what God has done in your life. And one of the my favorite stories is the Israelites in the Bible and how God brought them out of Egypt in their slavery, and all along the way, parting the Red Sea, crossing the Jordan River, every single time there was an altar built afterwards. Stones, heavy stones were picked up, carried long distances, and altars were built. Why was that? To remember, to never forget what we have been through and what God has done for us. So if you find yourself struggling today, if you find yourself going through things, I encourage you to just think back of some stuff that God has got you through in life. And for me, it made what I'm going through right now with being attacked uh, by the enemy, by the devil, through people and through situations right now. When I take myself back and I realize what God has brought me through already, it makes what I'm going through right now so minimal and so little. Still real, but I just put my faith in God and I continue to try to move forward. So I'm not a perfect human being. If you're looking for a channel uh, for somebody perfect that never gets anything wrong, that has all the right sources and just the ideal human being, you're on the wrong channel. You're not going to find it here. I have a past. I love God. I love Ohio State football. I love helping people. If you guys need help with anything, text me. I ran Teen Challenge for quite some time. I worked for them as well. If you know any loved ones that need help with addiction, I can get them in any state around this country. I can help them find a place to go. Don't worry about the money side of it. We can deal with that when we get there. But for the most part, if you want help, money will not get in the way of you getting that help. Shoot me an email at thebuckeyeboys@gmail.com if you or you know somebody that needs help. So I wanted to get that out there. Again, you know, I know it's a football channel. I know some of you guys, you're not into that stuff. That's okay. I don't judge people, whether they're believers or not. I love everybody, love you guys, but I'll always share who I am in my beliefs and let you guys know that I don't care what you believe. I don't care what you've done. If you need help, I will do my best to help you. So, on that note, let's do it. Let's dive into some Ohio State football. And we already know, you guys have already heard it. It's Brian Hartline leaving. You know, I'll tell you where this started for me. Okay. So, James Franklin gets fired. And obviously, that day, I saw some rumblings on the Thinker. Yes, clickbait. Yes, it is. There, that's out there too. You want to make a title that encourages people to click on your video. Kind of common sense. But anyway, when this happened, you saw a couple of Ohio State people be like, "Oh, what is he going to go after Brian Hartline?" And then the second, I think that day or the very next day, I saw a Twitter account, and it was also on the message boards that the Penn State private jet has landed in Columbus, Ohio. So you kind of anticipated this, whether or not he's a candidate or not. You knew somebody was going to have some type of reporting that had Brian Hartline's name in it because we've been worried about it. He, got interviewed for the West Virginia job last year, and he's just a hot commodity right now with his coaching ability, and his recruiting ability. Okay, so you got that aspect of it where, hey, it's an obvious topic that you can put out there to get a bunch of clicks, to get a bunch of views, whatever it is. So that was that's where this started. Some random account putting out there, oh my gosh, the Penn State's jet has landed in Columbus. Okay. I asked some people about that who I believe would know, who have always told me those type of things, said, no, that's not true. Well, about a week later, we see what's going on. Okay. So a couple days ago, if you read the Penn State boards, and you guys know how message boards are, if you got on there and read the message boards, they were hinting towards, and things were said of this nature. The candidate is found and he is all but signed. There's some verbal agreements in place on numbers, and there's a lot of OSU smoke. And before that, it was 3 candidates left. Hartline was among those 3 candidates. Rule is out. A lot of people, Matt Rule, you read the message boards, they say he was out. And they also were putting on there that things are going to move a lot quicker with the remaining 2 candidates than people think. So I went through a lot of the message boards. Those are kind of some things that the Penn State insiders were saying. Okay, so some other things. Nittany Sports Now, a website covering Penn State, confirmed that Brian Hartline is a candidate for the job. Now, what do they mean by candidate? We want him. We've interviewed him. I don't know, but that's what they're reporting. Sports Illustrated reported Brian Hartline is the top candidate for the job, and that Penn State boosters are absolutely enamored with Brian Hartline. And if it was up to the Penn State boosters, Brian Hartline would be the next head coach at Penn State. College football Facebook, a lot of people started reporting Brian Hartline is the top candidate, right? It makes me question, then you got to, take a step back and be like, okay, before I text anybody or do anything like that, it's like, does this make sense at all? Is this something that could be real? We know the landscape of college football. $167.9 million has been dedicated to removing a head college football coach this year. $167.9 million. So I say that to tell you, college football has changed. People are investing a lot of money in firing coaches. Therefore, they're going to invest a lot of money in hiring coaches. But when you look at Brian Hartline, right, is he going to be a good candidate? Would he be a good candidate? Now, this is me giving my take. Everything I just said, that's what other people are taking. This is my take on the Brian Hartline thing. 2017 got hired as a GA. 2018 became the wide receivers coach and absolutely did a phenomenal job, right? And is doing a phenomenal job at that. Tried to be the OC in 2023, actually got promoted to it, but ended up not calling the plays. Last year, Chip Kelly called the plays. This year, he's called, 7 games as the offensive coordinator. So he had a little rough stint of being the offensive coordinator there. So, when you're talking about a head coach job, you're talking about a way more administrative role than what Brian Hartline is currently doing and what he's used to. Just because you're a good wide receivers coach doesn't make you a good head coach. So, in my opinion, I think he needs more time before he would be ready to be a head coach anywhere. But there are some things that are very intriguing about him that you would want to get him in a program, and that is the lifeblood of the program is recruiting, right? But unfortunately, you got to be able to raise money before that. So we don't know if Brian Hartline's capable of that or not. That's Ryan Day's job. But the recruiting relationship aspect of it, the second he's hired as head coach, your recruiting would skyrocket. You definitely wide receivers. You would get a lot of good wide receivers on your team, and they would be developed at the highest level. But you see, he doesn't have much experience calling plays and not much there for that. So I wouldn't think that this is actually the route that Penn State would go. That's not what I would think. There's a lot of people that go the route of, hey, they stole Jim Knowles. I wonder if they would come get Brian Hartline just to try to screw up Ohio State. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't think they're scum. I don't think they have the mindset of that program over there. I could see that program doing something like that, but not so much Penn State, right? So when you ask yourself, like, how now, this is the point where I reached out to people, after all this thinking and digging, reached out to some people. Obviously, you guys heard Nevada and B. Moses yesterday. Some of this stuff is the same as that. Some of it's not, right? So we already know the plan that Ryan Day has given to Brian Hartline, right? And he has a pretty good example, his career to go by, right? He started as the offensive coordinator at Ohio State, ended up being the head coach. He did not go get a head coaching job at a smaller school somewhere and work his way up. There's a risk in doing that. The risk in doing that is if you leave Brian Hartline and you go be the head coach at Penn State and you do not win national titles there, would you ever get hired as the head coach for Ohio State? I think that would really diminish your chances of doing that unless you were super successful where you went. So, and I think ultimately, well, we know this to be a fact. Brian Hartline would love to be the head coach at Ohio State one day. He would love it. Okay. And we know there's people after him. Brought up West Virginia last year. I was told, that they did not. West Virginia interviewed him. That's a fact, but didn't hire him. They didn't choose him. Okay, so we know that. So if he wasn't ready enough for West Virginia, what has changed in that short amount of time to make him ready for Penn State, right? So you got to ask yourself that question too. But obviously, Ryan Day's pitching to Brian Hartline, hey, look, stay here, gain this experience, take the same path that I took to be the head coach here one day, because I think you can be, and I want you to be the head coach here one day. But obviously, there's a lot of things he needs to get better at and do that. And if you just take a step back and look at the whole situation, Brian Hartline played for Ohio State. Look at the trajectory of his career just by staying at Ohio State. Look at the name he's making for himself. Look at the team this year, the wide receivers he has on the team this year. Look at the wide receivers he has coming into the program. Would Brian Hartline leave for $10 million a year? I'm not quite so sure Brian Hartline really needs money like that. Played in the NFL, was successful in the NFL for quite some time. and is pretty successful with what he's doing here. So the money aspect of it, I don't buy that too much. That's going to be a huge pull for him. I do know that he wants to be a head coach one day. He wants to progress in his coaching career, but it's okay. Who's he going to listen to? Who's his mentor? Who's he going to listen to? Well, if you look at him and Ryan Day's relationship, they've been pretty close. So I would lean more towards that. But so I reached out to somebody else who knows this stuff very close to the program. And I simply, I texted, hey, is there any smoke to this? And is there any truth to this at all? And I just got told point blank, no, there isn't. But Penn State is reporting, there's a couple, I don't know how credible the sources are, but there are several Penn State sites saying, yes, Brian Hartline is a candidate. But number one, I just don't buy that he would even take that job. I really don't, because of what he has here and how set up he is here for Ohio State. Number two, I don't think, that money is going to be a huge pool for him there. And he's kind of, he just started coaching in 2018, man. So he's been doing this not very long. He's a very young coach. So, wisdom would tell us that he's going to be patient and stuff. I personally don't think he's ready for a head coach job anywhere. And I personally do not think that Brian Hartline is the top candidate for the Penn State job, even though that is what is being reported. Some message boards are reporting that there is already some verbal agreements in place, and this thing's going to move a lot faster than what we expected. I'm just not buying it. Yo, peace out, Mella. Love you, brother. I'm not buying it. I reached out like I told you guys, and I just straight up got told no. Right? I didn't get any details about whether any of this smoke about the interviews and about him being the top candidate and all that stuff. I don't have any information on whether he's interviewed and all that stuff. That's what Penn State is reporting. I don't know how much I buy that. I don't know if Brian Hartline would go mid-season to an interview and actually go along these steps when I don't think this is a job he would take in the first place. I mean, you got some serious openings right now in college football. LSU, Florida, Penn State. And I wanted to ask you guys, out of all the teams with head coaching available, rate the top three. Mine would be number 1, LSU, number 2, Florida, number 3, Penn State. Okay, so that would be the order for me if I was a candidate for these jobs and they were interested. I would want to go to LSU before I went to Penn State or Florida, and Florida before I went to Penn State. So anyway, long story short on the Brian Hartline stuff, a lot of conflicting information. It makes sense that this is a hot topic. You put Brian Hartline's name in the potential of leaving, you're going to get some serious clicks. You're going to get some serious views, right? But then there's the side where the Jim Knowles stuff, when it came out last year, I brushed it off too as the same thing. Okay. And it wasn't. But ultimately, everything I'm being told, that that is what's going on here. People are elevating this to a way higher place than what it really is. And I don't think there might have been an initial inquiry of, hey, are you interested? But again, the guy I texted, I promise you, is he's right there. Like he's right side by side with the whole everything. And I just got told, no, it ain't going to happen. So that's my take. Ain't going to happen. I think the reporting from the Penn State side has been edged up a notch because of the amount of traffic you can engage by doing this, right? So I don't think Brian Hartline is going anywhere at all, not for the Penn State job. Number one, I do not believe that Penn State considers him the number 1 candidate, first off, and I'm not sure that Brian Hartline would go and do that anyway and risk the trajectory of his career. That's a pretty big risk. If you leave a little early, you might lack a little knowledge and wisdom in the coaching game. And if you go to Penn State and it blows up, you go from the most wanted coach in the nation, and Brian Hartline to not so want it anymore because we see he can't do it. So I just think Ryan Day has got a good enough relationship with him that this is not something that we need to be worried about as Ohio State fans. So there we go. Brutus Buckeye, thanks for being a member for 20 months, brother. So we don't need to start a GoFundMe to keep Hartline. I don't think so. I'm not there, and the people that I talk to, they're not there either. They're on the same page as me of thinking this is getting. I mean, it makes sense. Like I said, you guys know to blow it up. Anything if you put Ohio, it's just like how these recruits put Ohio State and all their graphics. Like Ohio State is pretty much in every single recruit's top 3. Why? Because you're going to get a lot of people involved in your final decision if you got Ohio State. We're like the largest fan base if we're not the largest, we're the second largest, and we are very passionate about our Buckeyes. So you include anything to do with Ohio State in anything that you do, you're automatically up in your views by quite a large number. So, but again, right? It's a crazy, crazy world that we live in. I didn't believe the Jim Knowles stuff at first, but also I didn't know Jim Knowles kind of like I know a little bit about Brian Hartline now. It doesn't fit. The shoe doesn't fit for me in any way. But we will see. So I do not have out of 1 to 10. My stress level on it is a 1. I could be completely wrong. So wanted to share with you guys my little research I did, my information I gathered from a couple people. So relax, Buckeyes. I think we're in a real good spot. Brian Hartline, listen, with what he's doing this year at offensive coordinator, let's say he goes back to back, you wait and see the stories that come out after that national title game about the jobs Brian Hartline is in on and the offers that are going to come rolling in the door. So just because we're probably going to survive this one doesn't mean just prepare yourselves, guys. Either way, this is Ohio State. This is the block. Oh, man, as much as I love Ryan Day, as much as I love Jeremiah Smith, as much as I love Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles and Matt Patricia, we could lose all those. We could lose all those people. And this is the Ohio State. We are going to be okay. Okay. It's built on the culture. And to be honest with you, us fans have a lot to do with that, with our passion with this team puts a lot of pressure on this administration to make sure this program is top notch because they will catch some hell if they don't. I got a final leaving question for you guys, right? This is a really interesting one. Somebody asked this in the Scoop chat last night. I thought it was a really good question. Shout out to who that was. I forget. I apologize for that. But we got a couple Buckeyes on the staff right now that I think would make good future head coaches at Ohio State. So before we get off here, I need you guys to answer this. Would you rather have James Laurinaitis as the head coach one day or Brian Hartline as the head coach one day? You got James Laurinaitis. We know his career. We know his recruiting ability as well. You hear him do interviews. You hear him talk. You hear his knowledge of the game. You hear his players talk about how smart the dude is, very well spoken. I think because the head coach role, especially now, has a lot to do with raising money and meetings and talking to people all day long. So, yes, knowledge of the game is a huge part as well. Does James Laurinaitis have that covered? Yes. He's got the knowledge and experience of the game. He's helping call the defense this year. He's helping Matt Patricia with that. So when you look at the defensive coordinators he's worked under as well, that's a lot of good experience he has as well. But then there's the other aspect of, going around to meetings, raising money, dealing with NIL and the transfer portal and all those things. I really like James Laurinaitis' demeanor when he gets in front of people, the way he speaks, the way he articulates things. I really like that. So let's go to Brian Hartline. The football knowledge, the coaching, the recruiting, A+, man. A+. I don't think, now, obviously, he's real good at, talking and building relationships, the relationship part of it. I think it's a little different from being a head coach and being a good recruiter. There's a little difference there. And to me, man, um, I'm picking James Laurinaitis. I that's just a feeling I have, right? And this is all going to be opinions. There's nobody right. There's nobody wrong. But I am curious here in the chat. Let's see what we got. Steely said co-head coaches. Okay, so he's cheating. Steely's cheating. Troy got James. Ed has Brian. Lucia would take either. Hey, listen, I would too. Let me make that clear. But I'm just saying, like, it's just a tough question, man. It's a tough question, and I've thought about this since last night. And I would go with James Laurinaitis. And that's just a feeling. Tinker, stop. Stop chewing on everything. Sorry. Okay, come here. Come on. Yeah, she's so needy, man. Say hi to everybody. This is Tinker. She sits at my feet the whole show, chews on my sandals, chews on my toes, chews on the desk. So here she is. Okay. Yeah, the Brian Hartline, the skeletons in the closet. Yeah, as long as he would have Matty P, I would take Hartline. It is Halloween, Jim Denton. I love it. Yeah, bro. Okay, Doodah agrees with me, right? James Laurinaitis. I feel like I've seen more James in the chat. Is James winning in the chat? Is the chat choosing James? I'd choose Tinker, Bubba, me too. I mean, they had Tinker for like 2 or 3 weeks, but man, I got a soft spot for animals. I'm in love with Tinker. She knows it too. Look at her. Just resting her head on my chest, just looking up at me with her little eyes. She knows she can do whatever she wants. But she's a good girl, though. But, hey, all right, y'all. I appreciate you guys tuning in, man. Appreciate you guys listening to my testimony at the beginning. Again, I want to reiterate, I'm serious about that. That's the number one calling God has in my life. It's why I started my company. That's why I do what I do. This channel that's part of the reason I started this channel. I wanted to spread that. That's why I interview these recruits. I love hearing their stories of success. Hopefully another young kid will listen to those interviews and get motivated by listening to a kid similar to their age and their success story, and use that as fuel, like to further themselves in their lives, man. I love that. I love seeing people succeed. If it wasn't for people around me to offer me help and give me a helping hand when I least deserve it, because we know, right? One of our coaches here said, right, when is the best time to show somebody the most love? When they least deserve it. When they least deserve it is when you should love somebody the most. That's what I try to do. So I'm dead serious. If you guys know anybody, I don't care if you're in Ohio and I'm in Florida, I can get them in anywhere. Anybody that wants help, that is struggling right now, particularly drug addiction, but they're also, that's just the area I'm very familiar with and can help the most in. Send me an email at thebuckeyeboys@gmail.com. I will do everything I can. And I appreciate you guys listening to me on this topic that everybody and their mom has talked about already. I know I'm last in line on talking about it, but still wanted to give my take on it. Doing another show tonight, man. 7:10. Got Sports Talk with Jay coming on. The dude's awesome. Been on Scoop before. Very excited to have a conversation with him. A non-biased opinion on these Buckeyes this year. I want to see, hey, is he in line with us Buckeye fans who think that they're easily the number one team in the country and it's hard to see who's going to stop them? Does he have that same outlook, or are we wearing scarlet glasses? I really like to know those things. So he's going to come on. We're going to have that conversation, talk about the national perspective of the rest of college football, man. So you guys tune in for that tonight. Show Sports Talk Jay some love. Get in that chat, chat it up, super chats, all that stuff on your way out. If you haven't hit the like button, please do that. If you're watching me on Scoop, I still stream on the Buckeye Boys channel. If you could go over there and hit that like and subscribe button on the Buckeye Boys channel as well, that would be greatly appreciated for sure. So on that note, I appreciate you guys for taking time out of your day at randomly 2:00 in the afternoon to come on here and listen to what I got to say. So appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Go Buckeyes. OH. I